Have Uber and Lyft killed the taxi industry? According to some reports, no. In fact, according to some reports, there might be more taxi drivers now than ever before. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur, and it is a topic that has been discussed many, many times on this channel. Look at what Uber and Lyft did to the taxi industry. Before there was Uber and Lyft, before there was this freedom for people to just get on and get off and accept slave wages, there was the taxi industry. It was regulated, it functioned, it worked, people could make careers out of it. The job might have sucked to some people, but you could make a go at it. And because of those darn Uber and Lyft drivers, guess what? The taxis are suffering. And here's the thing, it's true. The taxi industry has suffered greatly since Uber and Lyft actually came to the area. And some might say that it's not fair. Personally, when this all started, when I started covering this, I was not too sympathetic to the taxi industry because I felt like, you know what? Uber and Lyft created a better product. The taxi industry could do the same thing. And then the more and more predatory Uber and Lyft got, the more I realized the taxi industry had a point. They were preying on their business using very unfair methods, in my opinion. Well, we now have new news and data to show that not only are taxi drivers doing just fine, there's actually more taxi drivers than there used to be. However, before we talk about any of that, let's have a word from our sponsors.
Thanks, Kevin. Hi, I'm Jonathan with gigworker.com, and we've been commissioned to conduct a survey by an insurance company that's getting ready to put out a new insurance product specifically for Uber and Lyft drivers. But they want to get some information from drivers that will help them tweak the insurance so it really fits our needs. So I wanted to invite you to participate in the survey because they're going to use your answers to help them design the cheapest Uber and Lyft insurance available. Not only will it be cheaper, but it will cover a lot more, like lost wages when you can't work because your car is in the shop. Think about that. So if you're an Uber or Lyft driver, would you take about 5 minutes to complete the survey? Kevin said he'll leave a link down below in the description. If you could click on that at the end of the video, that would be great.
From Quartz, the number of American taxi drivers has tripled in a decade. Keep in mind, it was about a decade ago that Uber and Lyft first came on the scene and got into their whole industry disrupting technology. So here's the article. Uber and Lyft radically changed the landscape for the taxi industry, and in cities like New York, contributed to the collapse of a bubble that left many drivers in financial ruin. But as an American occupation, the taxi driver is enjoying a renaissance. Over the past 10 years, the shares of U.S. adults who say their primary job is a taxi driver or chauffeur, a category that includes driving for ride-hail services like Uber and Lyft, have nearly tripled. Almost 0.3% of all Americans over 18 said they were taxi drivers in 2019, according to the data from the Current Population Surveys, a monthly survey of employment conducted by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Growth in the profession accelerated in 2014, the year Uber expanded from 66 to 266 cities around the world and transformed from a niche startup into a household name. As of last year, the trend shows no sign of slowing down. So as you can see, here's the chart, and it was going up, and then it went down for a little point, and points to represent monthly estimates, and then it's going up. The CPS data likely underestimates the true number of Americans who works as part-time or full-time taxi drivers and chauffeurs. That's because the CPS counts U.S. adults who give this occupation as their primary job, while many people who drive for service like Uber do it as a secondary gig. For context, a 2016 study by Uber and labor economist Alan Kruger found that more than half of the drivers worked full-time at another job and 14% worked part-time at another job. Lots of these people aren't being captured by the CPS estimates. The trends are still instructive, though. For instances, the CPS data shows that growth in taxi driving has been particularly robust in high and medium density cities, and as defined by this list of weighted density for American metro areas. About 0.8% of Americans in high density cities were taxi drivers as of April 2018, more than double the national rate. So here's the high density, the medium density, and the low density. So here's the thing. The rise of professional drivers has been less pronounced in areas with fewer people per square mile. These density patterns make sense. Much of the growth in the taxi driver profession is likely attributable to ride hailing, which tends to work best in dense urban areas where there are lots of potential riders with relatively short distances of one another. Uber says it books 24% of rides revenue in the 5 cities, including Los Angeles. New York City and San Francisco. That makes sense. That makes sense because there's a lot of people there. The other two are London and Sao Paulo. One big question about ride-hail companies is whether they will ever find much success in less dense parts of the country, like suburbs and rural areas. I believe they could, if they made it worth people's while. So anyway, that's the article. Now, some of you at this point are going to point out, well, that wasn't exclusively about the taxi industry. I mean, you said that the taxi industry was healthy and it was growing. You're talking about ride hailing there. Here's the thing. I'm going to admit this was a little bit of a clickbaity article. I do consider Uber and Lyft drivers to be taxis. So does this article. So does pretty much anyone with any common sense. I mean, people might say, oh, I'm not a taxi driver. I'm a rideshare operator. It's like, no. You drive a car, you pick people up, you take them to their destination, you collect money. You're a taxi driver. So what I find interesting about articles like this is that basically Uber and Lyft have tried very, very hard to suggest that they don't run a taxi industry. Like, they are not taxis. And here's Quartz not even getting political. They're just stating that people drive more because of Uber and Lyft and they consider them taxis. And I think a lot of people do consider Uber and Lyft taxis, to the point where once these regulations start hitting, Uber and Lyft will have to be transportation because that's their main business. That's their bread and butter. That is what they do. They don't just deliver food, which we're going to be talking about next. So I think it is fair to say the taxi industry is overall very healthy. In fact, I don't know if you can see it right here, but underneath the picture, it says not all taxi drivers drive yellow cabs. The public is not fooled one bit. They know that Uber and Lyft is a taxi replacement. That you say hail a cab in the old days, now you say hail an Uber. Like, that's just how it works. And so articles like this are not going to help their case that they are a payment company or they're a social network. They're a technology company. Because, yeah, the taxi industry, they use technology, but they're not considered a technology company. So anyway, yeah, I kind of misled you a little bit on that title and that intro. Terribly sorry. However, I think it's worth noting that Uber and Lyft's PR marketing isn't exactly working the way they probably hope. People still consider them to be glorified taxis, and as such, they are putting them in a bracket that says the taxi industry is growing, it's healthy, and it will continue to grow. However, I would like to know what you folks think about this. So, what do you think? Do you agree with this article? Do you agree that they are taxis? Do you think they're separate? Do you drive anything? I'd love to know all these questions. So, comment below. Like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you enjoy my videos, consider becoming a Patreon member. It's totally optional, of course, but even as little as $1 a month goes a long way to helping the channel run smoothly, and you get access to my Patreon's exclusive blog. Also, if gas prices are getting you just a little down the blue, check out the Get Upside app below. It's totally free, but you get cash back on every gas purchase. Also, subscribe to the Apptrepreneur Vlogs channel for more content from me. It's a little different from what we do here, but I think you will enjoy it all the same. And finally, if you want to talk to me or other fellow rideshare drivers, or heck, other fellow taxi drivers, check us out at the Apptrepreneur Hangouts on Facebook. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.